this is also for you a very, very deep passion.
It is deep passion.
Mhm.
It is.
What fuels that? What keeps that going?
What keeps it going is the desire to discover something new. And once you have that, like as a scientist, I'm not contented with what I've read in the textbook because this is history. This is where history is, and that's what informs my book. Is that people say, "Oh, how do you know this?" Because I spent years in the field collecting data. That's why I know it. So this is the kind of no one can you cannot read this in the textbook. It's not there. So I desire to discover new knowledge, new chapter in Yoruba history. It's really what drives me and my collaborators to do this work. Because there are many gaps we need to fill. And I feel like it's only when you go into the bush that you can fill those gaps. So yeah, there's a desire to discover for sure. But it's not just for personal glory. It's also to fill gaps in the history.
You said you started with Professor Agbaje-Williams. Can
Agbaje-Williams.
you talk a bit briefly about that?
Yes, Professor Agbaje-Williams was and still my mentor because once a teacher, always a teacher. I was an undergraduate student when he began to invite me to join him. We would spend maybe 10 days. He's kuli and and the gari. That's what we ate in those days because he didn't have money to do this kind of scale of work. So we will stay in the villages, in the hamlets. After 10 days, the money will run out. Then we'll go back to Ibadan. So that's how he introduced me to Oyo. So I've always wanted to, as a student, I saw potentials in this area, and I felt like one day, hopefully, I will have the resources to do this kind of work. So he introduced me to this area, and he encouraged me to continue to work. But I started my work in Shalan. I did my early work in Ilari, Elisha, and all that before moving to. So when I started working on my empire, I decided to focus on the frontiers of the empire. That's when I focused on Edeile, what is around the present day Ede on the Subo. At that time, I was asking questions about how the empire developed. And for me to answer that question, I cannot focus here. Because if you want to study how an empire expanded, you need to study the area they expanded into. So I started working in the frontiers of the empire. And then once I've answered sets of questions there, I now feel comfortable to come to the metropolis and then begin to ask different sets of questions about the foundation of the empire itself. And that's what led me to this area here. So his work laid the Professor Agbaje-Williams' work laid the foundation for what I'm doing here.
Okay. When did you start working with him, and how long did you work with him for?
Well, I was a student in Ife. I got to Ife in 1984. That's when I met him as an undergraduate, and he took me under his wings. Tell us stories about Yoile in class, and fascinating. So I think in 1988, he brought me here for the first time. In 1999, I came with him, and then I think in 1992 as well, I was here with him, or 91, I can't remember now. So those three occasions gave me the background, the physical introduction, apart from reading it in the text. And then 2017, I decided to launch a 10-year project on this area. And now we're now in our 5th year. So another 5 years. By the time we finish another 5 years, to have a wide range of new data to answer some of the questions we're asking. Each questions of political economy, of power, of urbanism, environment, climate change, how the empire developed, how it's eventually collapsed, what led to it. So these are the kind of questions we are asking, and so we are getting closer and closer to fill those gaps.
Okay. So you started with him, and now you're bringing uh, archaeology students and graduate students into the field yourself.
Yes.
I mean, this what's among the things that's most inspiring for me about this being here is that we have often despaired about our scholars not doing work like this, about students of archaeology and so many other fields just learning theory in our higher institutions here in Nigeria and not actually. But here we are, you are doing. How significant is it, do you think, the fact that these graduate students can join you in this work, and what kind of hope do you have that they can take the baton from you in future the way you did from Professor Agbaje-Williams?
Yes, as I said before, I see this project as not just discovering new things, but also building human capacity. So that's why, with the access I have to University of Ibadan, as an alum of the university and also now as a visiting professor there, I wanted to make this place a training ground for students, for graduate students especially, uh, to give them the experience and also to collaborate with them. I see them as my students, but also as my collaborators. That means that we sit down together to discuss the questions we are asking, to discuss the evidence that we have. I seek their input, and I also show them how to write rigorous, successful academic papers. Because it is one thing to do the research, it's another thing to be able to interpret and translate it into scientific knowledge, into knowledge that people can consume in the public. So so yes, there's a practical training on how to conceptualize this kind of project and how to go about doing the work. But then there's another level of building the confidence in the students that they can do this work the same way that I was a student and I'm now doing the work in the next 10, 15 years. I'm hoping that there will be 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 of them who are doing this work in different areas. For example, one of the students, he, he is planning to work on this in this area for his PhD, and I'm encouraging him to listen. You don't have to focus on the same thing that I'm doing. You can take one of the suburbs of the metropolis and become an expert on the metropolitan suburb of the empire. There are questions to ask because there's Oyo, but there are also these satellite towns that they created. Each satellite town served different purposes. Some were specialized towns for high-end production. We have evidence for that, that they were just high-end production because you cannot be producing iron in the city. The noise pollution, the environmental pollution will disturb the city residents. So they located iron smelting outside the city. You can see how urban planning works, right? And some were satellite towns like Bara. They were royal towns where they relocated the surplus population in the palace. So when a new king arrives, the staff of the old king have to be relocated somewhere. And this is one of the places where they move into. So that way they would decongest the palace. The new Alafin can now bring his own staff, his own people in.
They can establish a new order.
A new order. And then when that one passes away, so you can see the sophistication of urban planning there.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraging students to pick a project out of this. I always tell them that there can be 100 PhDs on this area, 100, and there won't be any confusion. There won't be any overlap. So I'm hoping that yes, this is a very expensive project to run. I've been very fortunate that I get support from my institution. I get support from little grants and there. National Geographic now is supporting this for this year. So I'm always perpetually looking for funding to do the work. And also my family resources also, my wife is always supporting as well as giving me extra money. So okay, go and do what you like to do, because that is what gives us peace at home. Because I always complain, I wish I'm in Oyele now,
Oh,
to do
oh,
field. So they supported me, and my children as well. They gave me support every day. So without that support, I would not be here. So that's what has been keeping us going. So, but the most important thing, as you said, is the fact that we are building capacity, human capacity. So yes, our scholars are not lazy. It's just the resources that they don't have. And when we train a new generation of students, they are going to change the future. And I think we have to tell the students that they can do it, and that they can just have to be imaginative and the drive. And what you've seen in these students, you know, what you've seen in these students shows resilience and drive to know, to discover. They are hungry for knowledge, and they want to make an impact. And I think we tend to underestimate our youth. The students that that 25 plus of them that have worked with me, I could say that they are the best that you can get. In fact, in this field work, you are the best field archaeologists in Nigeria.
beautiful.
I can tell you that.